As the day draws to a close, we gather here together, all who long for the company, the community, the deepest joys found in the soul's walk with each other. Here we are together. Whether we're in this room or online, we are part of a circle that gathers in community. And tonight on this Good Friday evening, the story of our tradition speaks of so many realities of our lives. Not just the cruel death of a first-century visionary and teacher. It's a story that pierces us with its violence in the cruel power of empire that seeks to silence a critique. It's a story that speaks to the tendency to deny painful and inconvenient truths. It's a story of isolation, of loyalties, of betrayal. Tonight's story reveals shadows in our own hearts, of truth and untruth, courage and cowardice, grief and courage. It reveals strength and power to stand, to forgive, to live with integrity and compassion. And when we come on a night like this to honor this day in our tradition, we are all seeking courage where we are tempted to be silent, complicit, or pass the buck. We're side by side, strengthening each other's solidarity to honor bold action in the face of fear. We're here together to support each other as we lament the ways that powers and systems can quash beauty and inhibit justice and hamper peace. And we're here to stand with each other in the face of corruption that silences those who bring wrongs into the light. To stand in the face of a world that crushes those that stand up to the world's abuse of privilege and power. But most of all, we gather to deepen our reverence for life, even amidst a story of death. Let's open ourselves to the power of love and life tonight, even and especially when the night grows darker and darker.
We wish to acknowledge this land on which Southminster Steinhauer United Church sits. For thousands of years, it has been the traditional land of the Cree, Blackfoot, Nakota Sioux, Dene Thaw, and many others. Today, this place is still the home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to live, to work, and to make our home on this land. May our words symbolize the actions and intentions to live our commitments of strong relations and continued reconciliation. And now we light our candle to be at the center of all we do and to kindle the fire that never dies away, a fire that reminds us of what shines within us and what lies just outside of us that remains mystery. When we're together, whether in person or through a screen, we are community. Let's rest in who we are together and open ourselves to the moment. And may this candle remind us that we're not alone in our journey. We are together and we are here for each other.
Mieke Wharton, who in these last few months gave all her strength, and with whom we shared life and many wonderful moments. Mieke died on Monday, April the 3rd. Mieke was a long-time member of our choir, at one time the accompanist, and an active part of our seniors choir, the Silvertones. And I was trying to find the right word, and I came up with a spirited member of the Tuesday Connection group and of our community. Mieke had many wonderful, amazing qualities, but her quirky humor was one of them. Certainly her love of animals. Mieke would never miss a blessing of the animals gathering in this space. Also, Mieke had a strength to encourage others that was beautiful to see. Our hearts are, of course, saddened, and we will miss all of who she was. Our hearts, likewise, are with her husband, Malcolm, the entire Wharton family, as they grieve. And we'll have the chance to say so much more and celebrate so much more about Mieke when we host a memorial service here in this space on Sunday, April the 30th at 2 in the afternoon. All are welcome, both in person and online. As is our custom, we sing our grief and we sing our gratitude, knowing that Mieke is safe in the undying light of love.
This is a reading from Matthew chapter 26, verses 47 to 56. When he was still speaking, Judas, one of the 12, arrived. With him was a large crowd with swords and clubs from the chief priests and the elders of the people. Now the betrayer had given them a sign, saying, "The one I will kiss is the man. Arrest him." At once he came up to Jesus and said, "Greetings, Rabbi," and kissed him. Jesus said to him, "Friend, do what you are here to do." Then they came and laid hands on Jesus and arrested him. Suddenly, one of those with Jesus put his hand on his sword, drew it, and struck the slave of the high priest, cutting off his ear. Then Jesus said to him, "Put your sword back into its place, for all who take the sword will perish by the sword." At that hour, Jesus said to the crowds, "Have you come out with swords and clubs to arrest me, as though I were a bandit? Day after day, I sat in the temple teaching, and you did not arrest me." Then all the disciples fled. These are the words from the first century Christian tradition. May we find wisdom for our living.
In the story that gets told on this Friday, Jesus and his friends eat together. They move then into the night to a garden where they await the coming events, because word had spread that the religious leaders and the elders of the community had decided to come and arrest and wanted to kill Jesus. His words had been, it turns out, too inflammatory. His actions too revolutionary, as it happens. The risk during a high and holy season in Jerusalem, the risk of him whipping the crowds into a frenzied mob, was too threatening to the power held by the Romans and the temple. Word was that they were coming for him. And so late at night, in a quiet garden, amid prayer and nervous waiting and fitful sleep, this small group who made their days teaching compassion, forgiveness and love, speaking of equity and justice, had to the powered establishment become dangerous and life-threatening. And it had come to a head in this garden. One of their own brought the authorities to them. This one, Judas, gives Jesus the kiss that marks him. And I often think about what that betrayal, as we've deemed it to be, would feel like. How after 3 years of working side by side and the camaraderie built in walking miles of dusty road together, of learning from each other, of the teacher-student relationship, of spiritual awakening, how one would process that this friend is now bringing the authorities to arrest him, the ones who wish him dead. And I think perhaps, though, we do have a small sense of what that might feel like. And it's not because we've necessarily been betrayed to the authorities who are coming to arrest us. Maybe some of us have. I'm not judging. That's not why I think we can relate to this, but because we've been victims of betrayals our whole lives. We all have. Betrayed by a world that we believed was benevolent, that wouldn't allow for the kinds of things that we see every day. That could be a whole host of things. It could be a rent bill that means you can't eat for the rest of the month. A body you don't recognize. The guns on the streets, the brutality of those who are empowered to protect. Or another damned virus. Or a child or parent with never-ending medical needs, or the betrayal of our minds as we struggle with mental health issues and a health system that doesn't make it a priority. Or the knowledge that millions are displaced because of climate events that have destroyed their communities and their land. We would all consider ourselves good people, and we are betrayed every day in our attitude of goodness by what we see in the world. Now, that betrayal, our hands aren't clean on that score, are they? Because that betrayal is not necessarily at the hands of another, but so often by our own. We've each found ourselves acting in ways that betray our values. We've each had to listen to the echo of words that reverberate around our own heads, words that we ourselves have spoken. And we can't believe that this anger, this cruelty, this kind of nastiness can come out of our own mouths. We've each done things we regret, realizing that they betray the kind of person we think ourselves being. We are not strangers to betrayal. That feeling of regret, we know, feels like disappointment in ourselves, feels like embarrassment, feels like betrayal, feels like an indignity to ourselves. And these are the scars that we walk this life with. They're not scars from a sword or from the whips or the knives. They're scars of memory, of heart wounds, of slow leaking diminishment of our very personhood. And unfortunately, they're all self-inflicted. So what do we do? And I wonder if there's not a hint in this old story. Jesus has this very quick response to Judas's kiss. He says to him, "Friend, do what you came to do." First of all, he calls him friend. I think our cynical eyes want to see that as a calling him out. But I don't know. He calls him friend, but not in that kind of past tense way. You are my friend, how could you? But in the sense of friend yet and still. There seems to be an acknowledgement there, perhaps, that this relationship forged through time and challenge has led to a knowing of each other in the way only friends can, and knowing who the other is, really is. And I wonder, is Jesus recognizing Judas as the one he knows so well? Friend. That this action, though perhaps a betrayal of the peace and the safety of that evening, was not a betrayal to Judas himself. That this is exactly Judas as Judas has always been and would ever be. We will never know because the story doesn't say. But there is much in that recognition of him as friend. Not just condemnation, perhaps, but acceptance. Friend, this is who you are, and it's okay. Do what you need to do. But alas, the heart isn't neutral in these scenarios. Whatever challenge in front of any of us, we are invested in our choices, in our life, in our path. And in those moments when some action from outside of us swoops us onto a new path, well, we mourn or we cheer, we rage or we lament. Listen to this poet, Jane Hirschfield. This is her poem called The Weighing. The heart's reasons seen clearly, even the hardest will carry its whip marks and sadness and must be forgiven. As the drought-starved eland forgives the drought-starved lion, who finally takes her, enters willingly then the life she cannot refuse, and is lion, is fed, and does not remember the other. So few grains of happiness measured against all the dark, and yet still the scales balance. The world asks of us only the strength we have, and we give it. And then it asks more, and we give it. The hungry have to eat. There has to be food. In the animal kingdom and all around, we rejoice, we lament, we mourn, we cheer, we rail, we adapt, we respond. The poet reminds us of this circle of life, the naturalness of birth and death, the rawness of life's inevitable forces. Part of the value of Good Friday is in recognizing the sheer, pardon me, shittiness of life. People betray us. We betray ourselves. We fall apart. Ideas are silenced. Good people are killed. Power, money, status, they usually win. Acknowledge it, lament it, it's the truth. In the face of betrayal at the hand of another or our own, we recognize that we're the walking wounded. We have these scars. We see them on our bodies and we feel them in our hearts. And in the face of that ongoing push of life, what is the answer? Most of the time, we don't have a clue. That's also this night. Look at the world. It's cruddy. Look at the world. What do we do about it? We don't know. We lament it, we acknowledge it, because it's the truth. So as tonight's story goes on, the arrest leads to a sham of a trial. which leads to the passing of the buck. No one really want to be responsible for the death warrant. It leads to attempts to free a prisoner. It leads to the refusal to answer corrupt questions from a corrupt system. And the story goes on to a long march to a place of execution, and finally the Roman crucifixion that would have this teacher of love and compassion, of openness and acceptance, hang, bleed, and suffocate to death. On this day, we mark the relationship of death and life. We mark the griefs and betrayals, the thankless work that's been done for goodness, for justice, for the freedom of us and others. And we recognize it often ends like this. Despite this, and in the midst of our griefs, we do know one thing. Life somehow is relentless. Relentless in its march forward. The sun sets and rises again. The thing is it does that with or without us. We're not so relentless. We tucker out and we end. But life carries on. Robert Frost put it this way: in 3 words, I can sum up everything I've learned about life. It goes on. But for it to go on with any integrity, with any eye towards ours and others' health, if we're really going to keep going, doesn't all have to be forgiven? Doesn't the weight on us grow far too heavy if we carry the wounds of each word we've spoken? If we carry the scars of every act we're ashamed of each instance of hate or impatience or anger or distrust or jealousy or fear or betrayal? Does that not just get too heavy? As the poet says, so few grains of happiness measured against all the dark. If we want to move on from who we are today to who we are yet to become, then we will have to shed some weight. We must molt last season's skin, last winter's fur has to be shed. If we're going to go on, if life is to continue, despite us not knowing a single damn thing but how to fix it, the courage to continue working toward that future requires a relentlessness that life teaches us and a momentum that won't keep moving if we're weighed down with the past scars and yesterday's mistakes. The world asks of us only the strength we have, and what do? We give it. I hope that this night might give us a chance to lament, but also a chance to look at all those scars in our hearts and all over us, and have confidence in the hardest task of all, and that is forgiving ourselves and each other. Finding the courage to continue making life more just and kind in our attempts, even if those attempts are rejected or utter failures. This night should give us the courage to see our scars as beautiful marks of experience and learning, calling them friends, calling every stupid, dumbass thing we've ever done friend. and giving the world strength that we have, because we go into tonight and tomorrow stronger for it. We won't get ripped where our scars are. Awfully strong skin. May we in our moving find the courage to speak better words. This is the hope, right? Tomorrow, better words, better friends. We're going to be better friends. We're going to act with stronger convictions. We're going to maybe betray our intentions just a tiny bit less. We're going to make friends with our past in order to grow toward light and life. In this strength, there will be tears, there will be yelling, but there will be beauty. And the sun, tomorrow, will probably come up. Our intentions always need strengthening, and we do so with most care when we do it together. And so there's words before us that we'll speak either out loud or silently as we read these together, and we will seek to find in them a place where we place our foot next, one step at a time. So, as those who seek a path of spiritual wisdom, inclusion, and justice, we chart our future with our intentions and commitments. In the face of injustice and hurt, we will not be satisfied with blaming the victim, pretending that nothing is wrong, we acknowledge the dangers of labeling. We will not accept the excuses that have attempted to justify collusion, silence, and complacency, inhumanity, and atrocity. We refuse to accept cruelty and suffering as a path toward the good. We will seek a better way that works for change while alleviating pain. We will not be complicit with injustice, nor will we accept fear and violence in silence. We will speak and live in ways that disarm and bring understanding, equity, and peace. We will stand with victims and seek to understand those who victimize. We will not settle for easy answers. We will work toward learning and living the wisdom of those who teach peace. We will refuse to see violence anywhere as an act of divine judgment, a holy war, or the will of any god. We will seek to bring the light of our deepest convictions and compassion to outshine cowardice, fear tactics, and violence. May we live these intentions each day in all the ways we are able. We pray in the hope of peace, the work of justice, and the spirit of persevering love. we're going to take this light into tonight. Whatever spark rests within you is there to be kindled. We'll take it as hope for something new to shine. We'll take it as an act of resistance against the dark. We'll take it for those who need it and not just ourselves. And may this light go with us as a reminder of grace that we'll show ourselves and each other. Go with us to remind us that tomorrow's light will come. And in this hope, we go into a hopeful expectation of all that is to come.